For 10 years, I was a refugee in the country I now call home. 10 years of praying every single night for one thing: to belong here, to be a citizen. And in those first few months, things were even harder. No school would take me, not one. I watched other kids walk through gates that were closed to me. Then a good citizen, a person with a kind and generous heart, stepped in for me, and a door that had been shut in my face opened. I was allowed to study. And you know what I was doing not long after? Complaining about homework, about deadlines, about exams, about how hard student life was. Then one day, in the middle of complaining, it hit me like a punch to the chest. I was complaining about the exact thing I used to pray for. The kid outside those school gates would have given anything to have my problems. Now, that moment didn't just humble me, it changed me. And what it did to my life after that, I'll tell you at the end of this video, because I still find it hard to believe. But first, here's the uncomfortable part. If this happened to me, with something I wanted that badly, it's happening to you too, right now, in some part of your life you haven't even noticed yet. By the end of this video, you'll be able to name the exact thing you prayed for and now take for granted. And you'll have a 3,000-year-old method for getting it back. Not the thing, the feeling of the thing. Ancient India told a story about exactly this. Think of it as an experiment run thousands of years before psychology existed. A king named Yayati is hit with a curse, sudden old age, right at the peak of his life, and he cannot accept it. So he goes to his sons with an offer no father should make. Trade me your youth. Take my old age. Let me keep living. His youngest son agrees. And Yayati takes that borrowed youth and lives another 1,000 years. Every luxury, every pleasure, everything a person could want. No limits on money, no limits on time, the exact life you and I dream about at 2 in the morning. And at the end of those 1,000 years, he gives the youth back to his son. And he says something that was written down and passed on for 3,000 years. Desire does not die when you feed it. It only grows like a fire fed with butter. 1,000 years of having everything, and the wanting never once went quiet. Modern psychology has a name for the fire Yayati discovered, and once you hear it, you'll see it running everywhere in your life. It's called hedonic adaptation. Some people call it the hedonic treadmill. Here's how it works. Something good happens, you feel the lift, and then, automatically, without your permission, your mind slides back to normal, every time. You don't have to take my word for it. In 1978, researchers in the United States ran one of the most famous studies in psychology. They compared people who had just won the lottery with people who had just been paralyzed in accidents. Within about a year, the lottery winners were barely happier than ordinary people, and they enjoyed everyday things less. The jackpot had raised the bar so high that normal life felt dull. The mind adapts to everything, the best things and the worst things. But here's the part almost nobody talks about. Your mind doesn't just go back to normal. That new normal becomes what you expect. The apartment that felt like a miracle becomes just where I live. The person who felt like a dream becomes the person I'm trying to change. The school you prayed to enter becomes the homework you can't stop complaining about. And the child you prayed for is the same child you're complaining about. What feels like enough today quietly becomes not enough tomorrow. And there's a second thief working right beside it. Envy. Here's a simple equation for happiness. Your quality of life minus envy. Whatever you have gets shrunk by whatever you compare it to. And we compare all the time because humans don't invent their desires. We copy them. We see what someone else has, and suddenly we want it too. That's how a great life starts to feel small. You're not looking at your life anymore. You're looking at theirs. 300 years ago, a French poet named Jean de La Fontaine described this trap with one simple picture. He wrote about people who neglect their real house. The roof leaks and the walls crack, but they spend all their energy building a castle in the air. Your real house is everything you already have, the things your younger self prayed for, the life you hoped would one day take shape. The people you once wished you'd meet are now in your friend circle. The body that carries you, the doors that opened, the chances you dreamed would come, that came. But the castle calls to you, the next thing, the upgrade, the better version. And this might be the most dangerous trap in all of life, letting your real house fall apart while you chase a castle that doesn't exist yet. Hear me clearly. There's nothing wrong with ambition, nothing wrong with dreaming big or building for the future. But there's something wrong with doing it at the cost of the present, because ambition without gratitude is just a treadmill. You'll reach the castle, get used to it within months, and start planning the next one, forever. And none of this is a character flaw. You're not ungrateful, you're not broken. This is wiring. The same system that controls your body temperature also controls how satisfied you feel, which means it will keep happening with everything you ever get unless you interrupt it on purpose. Quick pause. This video is part of a series on why the mind works against its own peace. If you want more of this, subscribe now so the next one finds you. Okay, here's the method. Ancient wisdom traditions didn't just describe this fire, they found a way to live with it. 3 shifts, each one builds on the last. Shift 1. See the fire, don't fight it. That line of Yayati's, desire grows the more you feed it, appears almost word for word in the Bhagavad Gita, one of the oldest books ever written on the human mind. It describes desire as a fire you can never put out by feeding it. Notice what the teaching does not say. It doesn't say desire is evil. It doesn't say ambition is wrong. It says know what you're dealing with. You cannot out-earn a fire. You cannot out-buy it. Feeding it is not a plan. It's fuel. So the first shift is simply seeing it. Next time you catch yourself thinking, I'll finally be happy, pause and name it. That's the fire talking. You don't fight it, you just stop believing it. Shift 2. Practice contentment like a skill, not a mood. Here's what nobody tells you. The ancient yoga tradition treated contentment as a daily practice. The Yoga Sutras, a guide to the mind written over 2,000 years ago, teach it as something you do every day. They make a bold promise. Practice contentment, and you gain a happiness that nothing outside you can match. This is not about settling. This is not lower your standards. It's something you do on purpose, again and again, like training a muscle. Old traditions across the world found the same rule. Satisfaction isn't found, it's practiced. Shift 3. Enjoy by letting go. One of the oldest texts in the Vedic tradition, the Isha Upanishad, opens with advice that sounds like a riddle. Enjoy through letting go. Not give up everything and enjoy nothing. Not grab everything and hold tight. Enjoy by holding what you love with an open hand, because the tight grip is the problem. The moment you grip something as mine, forever owed to me, your mind starts taking it for granted, and the color starts to fade. The writer Kurt Vonnegut had an uncle who never read a single ancient text, but he understood this. In a famous graduation speech, Vonnegut said what bothered his Uncle Alex most about people was this: they almost never stop to notice when they're happy. So Alex refused to be like that. Whenever life was simply quietly good, a cold drink in the shade of a tree on a summer day, he would stop the conversation and say out loud, "If this isn't nice, what is?" That's shift 3 in one sentence. Catch the good moment out loud while you're still inside it. And what Vonnegut asked of those students, I'm asking of you. For the rest of your life, when things are sweet and peaceful, pause and say it. And let me give you a modern version of Alex's habit. It starts in your shower. Think about this. Around 100 billion humans have ever lived, and almost none of them ever felt hot water pour over their shoulders at the turn of a handle. The kings didn't have it. The heroes you admire from 100 years ago didn't have it. Not one of them. You have it every morning. And it's not just the shower. Our food, our medicine, our children live longer. Our pockets carry more entertainment than a royal court ever saw. By any honest measure, we live like kings, among the luckiest people who have ever been born. And yet, life has never been better on paper and never felt worse inside. That's the treadmill. That's the envy. So try this. The next hot shower you take, pause for 3 seconds and say, "No one I admire from 100 years ago ever had this. And if this isn't nice, what is?" Now here's the full practice. It takes 30 seconds. 1. Pick one thing in your life your younger self actually prayed for. Not wished for, prayed for in a hard season. 2. Say it out loud and be specific. Not "I'm grateful for my life." Try, "I'm grateful I get to walk through doors that were once closed to me." 3. Do it at a moment when you would normally complain. That's the whole trick. The muscle only grows in the hard moment, not later, when you're calm and it's easy. Now I owe you the end of my story. That day I caught myself complaining about school, the very thing I had longed for as a refugee kid no school would take. Something shifted. I stopped seeing homework as a burden and started seeing it as an answered prayer. Every assignment, every exam, every long night of study, that was the privilege the kid outside the gates never had. And I didn't just become grateful, I became unstoppable. I finished as dux of my school, the top student, and I recorded the highest state ranking mark in that school's entire history. Not because I was the smartest person in the building, I wasn't. But gratitude, it turns out, is not the opposite of ambition, it's the fuel. When you truly see what you've been given, you stop dragging yourself toward your goals. You start being pulled toward them. That king we started with, 1,000 years of everything, and the fire never went out. Because he was trying to finish wanting, and wanting doesn't finish. But you can step off the treadmill. Not by wanting less from life, but by seeing more of what's already in it. Repair the real house and watch it become the foundation of every castle you'll ever build. The old teachings and the modern studies agree on one thing. Your mind moves the finish line on its own. You have to move it back yourself. If you take one thing from this video, let it be this. Say it to yourself, not because it's magic, but because your mind believes what you tell it. I release the chase for the next thing. I see clearly what I once prayed for. It is already here, and it is already mine. Contentment is not settling, it is arriving. Because here's the truth under this whole video. Gratitude was never about the big, obvious things. It's about the small things hiding in plain sight. The things you've already gotten used to. The things that used to be a prayer and are now just an ordinary Tuesday. And one day, years from now, you will look back on this exact season of your life and call it the good old days. So let this sink in. You are living the good old days right now. This is them. Don't wait for the rearview mirror to see it. So here's your assignment, and actually do this. Don't just nod at your screen. Right now, think of one thing you prayed for that has quietly become ordinary. Then stop. Look around, smile, and say the old question out loud. If this isn't nice, what is? Then come tell me. Drop it in the comments. What's the one thing you prayed for that you're taking for granted right now? I read every single one, and honestly, that comment section might be the best part of this video. If this hit you the way it hit me living it, subscribe. This channel is about exactly this: modern problems, ancient answers, rewiring the mind for a calmer, wiser life.